Hello, good evening. You're most welcome to the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. Can you please be up on your feet respectfully as the speakers, pardon me, and the chair take their seats? And kindly put your phones on silent. Thank you.
Kindly take your seats. Thank you.
The President, Vice Presidents, past Presidents, Fellows of the Academy, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, media representatives present here, good evening. I'm the Honorary Secretary of the Academy, and we say a warm welcome to all of us. It is a great pleasure to invite us all to Day 3 of the Academy's Public Forum 2025. As we all know, on the theme GALAMSEY Revisited. As an abridged introduction, I will say that we can all attest to the fact that we've had 2 wonderful days of insightful, to an extent, even provocative discussions on this perennial problem that has bedeviled our nation and continues to plague us. So today we're continuing. We have an excellent lineup of experienced, honorable speakers to take us through the day's presentations, to share their views, proffering solutions also to how we can all address this menace. I'm happy to say that this program is also being streamed live on the Academy social media, YouTube and Facebook platforms. And as always, we are most pleased to acknowledge the presence of students from Achimoto School and Presec. You are most welcome. So without further ado, I'll proceed to introduce the chairman who will then preside over the proceedings and get the program going. The chairman for this event is Professor Alfred Oteng-Yeboah. Professor Oteng-Yeboah is a retired professor at the University of Ghana. He has taught and trained many students, not only in Ghana, but in several other African countries, including Nigeria, Kenya, and elsewhere. He has published extensively in reputable journals and provided feature articles on environment and biodiversity at both the local and international levels. Our chairman has chaired many high-profile international and local environmental and biodiversity meetings. He is a founding bureau member and former vice chair representing Africa on the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. Our chairman has chaired the steering committee of the International Partnership for the Satoyama Initiative, a joint UNU and the Ministry of Japan initiative since its establishment in 2010. He chairs the trusteeship board of the Erocha Ghana, an NGO that advocates for nature and its conservation and sustainable use. And he also chairs the Tropinbos Ghana board. He was awarded the 2014 International Prestigious Maidori Prize for Biodiversity and the John Phillips Memorial Medal for 2020, the highest global conservation award of the IUCN. Ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, let's welcome our chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorary Secretary. The President of the Academy, past Presidents of the Academy, Vice President of the Academy, Vice President Arts of the Academy, Fellows of the Academy, invited guests, our distinguished students. I want to welcome everybody to the last of the series of the public forum. I'm sorry, I have a cold, so it's still interfering in my voice, but I'd like you to bear with me. Today, June 4th, marks the third and final day in this year's public forum series. There are many issues we could pick our theme from, and we are mindful of the many environmental crises being experienced in Ghana, including deforestation, plastic pollution, climate change effects on the subsistence farming, etc. However, as our president indicated on Monday at the opening of the first day of the series, we chose the theme GALAMSEY Revisited to create and heighten the awareness among Ghanaians on the issue of illegal mining, and in choosing to focus on GALAMSEY this year, we hope to be able to sensitize our people about the menace and prefer solutions for the citizenry. The first two sets of presentations given Monday and Tuesday provided the opportunity to get a proper and close-up view of the state of GALAMSEY menace on the Ghanaian environment, which is threatening biosphere, our hydrosphere, and our lithosphere, referring to the air, water, and soils. And secondly, the second day, we looked at the cost implications considering both direct and indirect costs in the attempt to repair the damage caused by GALAMSEY. Ladies and gentlemen, we were privileged to listen to 5 experts from different backgrounds who have laid bare the problems that GALAMSEY has unleashed on the Ghanaian environment, posing an existential threat to the nation's overall security, considering economic security, environmental security, and also social security. We are at a crossroads now within the precincts of ecocide situation, in which the life-sustaining elements of the environment, of the ecosystems, are being wiped out or are wiped out already. We are also at a tipping point at the moment towards a epimersisal situation, which is a denial or the killing of knowledge about facts on GALAMSEY's detrimental effects on people, including livelihoods, and finally, at the dead end, the genocide situation, which is the gradual killing of our communities and their cultures. GALAMSEY has been described in many ways by different people. However, there is one reference that emerged from a recent philosophical discourse at Legon, led by Professor Caesar Ature of Oxford and Legon universities. And he quoted from Rittel and Weber on a point that GALAMSEY can be referred to as a wicked problem. Now, a wicked problem, according to Rittel and Weber, which Professor Ature referenced, was defined as one that is ill-defined and malignant. It cannot be definitely solved and is dependent on the elusive political judgment for resolution over and over and over again. It has no definite formulation. It has no stopping rate. The solution that it proffers here could be either good or bad for different people. And there is no immediate or ultimate test of a solution. This is the definition which Professor Ature indicated to us when he gave the second memorial lecture in honor of the late Professor Kwame Gyekye at the Great Hall of Legon. Now, being a philosophical concept at the time, he was inclined to make a reference to our environmental underpinnings, which are creating so much problem in this country. And so when he quoted this reference of a wicked problem, he was actually alluding to the fact that yes, here we are, some people are benefiting at the expense of others. And one time you have a wicked problem, there are perpetrators that are actually showing that problem or creating that problem. And they laugh on the side of their mouths because when other people are in turmoil and are suffering, they are gaining. I'm delighted today that we have three very prominent speakers to tell us what to expect after spending 2 wonderful days listening to the actual nature of Galamsey in Ghana and also identifying the costs, implications of repairing the damage that these people are inflicting on our noble environment. Now, what is expected today is a situation where these colleagues, the 3 of them are all fellows of the academy, who in their own diverse ways have contributed tremendously to the growth of the academy. Their roles are going to indicate to us what is there in terms of legal basis on Galamsey and what kind of solutions that can be preferred in order for us to get rid of this menace, which is I refer to as the wicked problem. I have a singular honor to introduce the 3 prominent fellows of the academy who are going to lead us in the discussion. The first to be introduced is Ankomah Esquire. Ace is a senior partner and head of the disputes department at the law firm of Betsy Encho, Lecha, and Ankomah, where his practice covers civil litigation, alternative dispute resolution, regulatory investigations, and white-collar defense. He's a member of the Ghana Bar Association and has 33 years' experience in legal practice. He has served on the International Court of Arbitration of the International Chamber of Commerce as a director of Lex Mundi, the world's largest association of independent law firms, as a member of the panel of arbitrators of the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. He's also a member of the governing board of the Ghana Law Reform Commission, a member of the advisory board of Millicom Ghana Limited, a member of the governing council of Central University, a member of the advisory board of the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. He is currently a fellow of the Aspen Global Leadership Network, Africa Leadership Initiative, West Africa Aliwa, and the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, where he serves as a member of the governing council. He has lectured at both the University of Ghana and the Ghana School of Law in the law of taxation, company law, and civil procedure. Ace holds a Master of Law degree in International Taxation from Queen's University, Canada, qualification certificate in law from the Ghana School of Law, and a Bachelor of Laws, LLB, from the University of Ghana. He also holds a certificate in business management from the Judge Business School of the University of Cambridge and the Lex Mundi Institute, and certificates in advanced leadership and management, and in cross-border disputes also from the Lex Mundi Institute. ACE has written peer-reviewed articles on several aspects of Ghana law, which are published in journals such as the University of Ghana Law Journal, the Review of Ghana Law, and the Banking and Financial Law Journal. He has contributed chapters to books edited by the International Bureau of the Permanent Court of Arbitration and published by the Regent Press and by the School of Law of the University of Ghana. He is a co-author and co-editor of the recently launched treatise on Ghana's company law titled Companies, Corporate Insolvency and Restructuring in Ghana, the Law and Practice. It was published by LexisNexis. He has also self-published a book titled, Is There Not a Cost to Rant?, which won the first Kofi Awuno Creative Non-Fiction Award from the Ghana Association of Writers in 2018. Lawyer Ankomah will take the floor first, but in order to bring a pattern where I don't have to come back onto the podium to introduce the speakers, I would like to go ahead to introduce the other two speakers. The next that I have to introduce is Professor Yao Adu-Gyamfi, FRCA, WACS, FGCPNS, COV, FGA. COV is the commander of the Volta. It's good that I explain this because it's a very important recognition. Professor Yao Adu-Gyamfi hails from Kumawu, and he attended at the Saddle College, after which he selected to join the pioneer class of the University of Ghana Medical School. In December 1971, he was awarded a British Council scholarship to embark on postgraduate studies in anesthesiology and critical care and pain management. He obtained his fellowship of the Royal College of Anesthetists of England in February 1974. He returned to Ghana in September 1975 to become the first of the pioneer graduates to join the teaching staff of UGMSC, his alma mater. He became a fellow of the West African College of Surgeons and a foundation fellow of the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons at its inception in 2003. As a student, he became the third president of Ghana Medical School Students Association. He represented Ghana at the 1968 Conference of International Federation of Medical Students Associations in Helsinki, Finland, following which he convened a conference of all African medical student associations, out of which was established the All Africa Medical Students Association. Professor Adu-Gyamfi joined the advocacy group that promoted the setting up of the Ghana Postgraduate College that resulted in the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons. He was a member of the Foundation Executive Board and first chairman of Faculty of Anesthesiology and Critical Care. He was given a meritorious award on the 10th anniversary of the college and an award for the great and famous of the college in 2024. He was chairman of the Council of the College of Physicians and Surgeons from 2021 to 2024. He's a full professor and has quietly been pursuing and promoting qualitative and quantitative improvements in anesthesiology and critical care in Ghana. He was once head of University of Ghana Medical School's Department of Anesthesia and Critical Care. He is currently mentoring and nurturing a new medical establishment, College of Medicine and Allied Sciences, as its chairman of council. Professor Adu-Gyamfi also advocated for the setting up of the Ghana Health Insurance Scheme and joined in the preparatory work. He subsequently served as chairman of the board of the National Health Insurance Authority from 2017 to 2020. He was the president of the Ghana Medical Association from 2003 to 2005 and used his presidency to promote the health insurance scheme and reform of the Additional Duty Hours Allowance, ADHA. He worked as a consultant trainer for UNFPA for 5 years in Sierra Leone. He trained anesthesia personnel who contributed towards reduction in maternal mortality from 2,000 deaths per 100,000 live births to 800 per 100,000 during his consultancy. He served on the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and the National Technical and Coordinating Committee of the Ministry of Health, for which he was given the award of Companion of the Order of the Volta, that is the COV. He is a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. Professor Adu-Gyamfi currently works as a part-time consultant at the University of Ghana Medical School and also at Focus Hospital as consultant on pain management. I pause here because a very important information is coming. He is married to his classmate, Ambassador Dr. Mrs. Mokwa Blay Adu-Gyamfi, who is herself a foundation fellow of the Ghana College and fellow of the West African College, and formerly presidential advisor on HIV/AIDS. And between the two of them, they have 2 grown-up children. Professor Dr. Mrs. Adu-Gyamfi is here. Mamaa, you are welcome. Now, the next speaker to be introduced is Professor RoseEmma Mamaa Entsua-Mensah. Professor RoseEmma Mamaa Entsua-Mensah holds a BSc in Zoology, Diploma in Education, MSc in Aquatic Biology from the University of Cape Coast, and a PhD in Fisheries Science from the University of Ghana. She also holds a certificate in Aquatic Resource Management from the University of Hull, UK, a certificate in Environmental Impact Assessment, and a certificate in Aquaculture Production, Environmental Consideration and Food Safety from Israel, as well as a postgraduate certificate in Business Administration from GIMPA. She is a fishery scientist and an aquatic ecologist, and has done extensive research nationally and internationally. She attained the position of Chief Research Scientist and Deputy Director General at the CSIR Ghana from 2008 to 2018. Her main research focus was on lagoons and freshwater bodies in Ghana and other countries in the West African sub-region, documenting fish species and providing knowledge on their ecology and traditional management. She assessed the status of freshwater fishes in West Africa for the IUCN. Her research was also on coastal ecology and waterfalls of Ghana, women in water management and sanitation, science education and policy, among others. She has been involved in drafting 2 national science and technology policies for the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation in Ghana. She was one of the few African scientists who were involved in the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, which was written between 2004 and 2005. Her research on the effects of illegal mining on aquatic life in water bodies of Ghana, on manatees and fisheries, have extensive recognition locally and internationally. She has to her credit several publications, including refereed journal articles, books, consultancy reports, edited and unedited conference papers, project and technical reports. She has consulted for the World Bank and the Food and Agriculture Organization. In 2005, she was a visiting lecturer at the University of Knoxville, Tennessee, United States of America, and taught at the University of Winnipeg from 2001 to 2003, at the University of Cape Coast 2006 to 2009. In the year 2010, she was invited by the National Research Foundation of South Africa to be part of a 3-member international team to assess 3 of their research institutes. She holds membership of several local and international professional associations, boards, and committees. She was awarded the Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award in 1978, and the Ghana's Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs honored her with an Excellence Award for her research in fisheries. Also in 2012, the University of Cape Coast honored her as one of their distinguished alumni. In 2013, she was adjudged Africa's most influential woman in agricultural research for her work in fisheries by the group Creating Excellence in Organizations in South Africa. She is a fellow of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. She was the chair of the University of Ghana College of Basic and Applied Sciences Advisory Board between 2019 and 2022. She has just been appointed as a member of the Executive Committee of the International Human Rights Network of Academies and Scholarly Societies. She retired from the CSIR in September 2019 and is currently the director of the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the CSIR College of Science and Technology. She is also happily married, and the husband is also here. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure now to ask in turns the distinguished speakers, and I'm going to first call on Lawyer Ankomah to take the podium and address us on the issues that have bearings on legal matters as far as GALAMSEY is concerned. Lawyer Ankomah, you have the floor.
Thank you, Prof. My given topic is the overhaul of national institutions regulating mining, the role of institutions, including chiefs. I usually have a caveat that since I talk for a living, please watch the clock. 30 minutes after I start, just stop me. So it's 6:10. Let's get into it. This paper proposes 2 constitutional reforms. 1, a one-stop and independent Natural Resources Commission. And 2, an independent prosecutions authority. And let me admit that the independent prosecutions authority gets into my paper because of the proverb that when the mosquito wants to go to its in-law's house, the wind blows it. So the wind of this opportunity gives me the chance to speak to this as well and create a real or tenuous link with GALAMSEY, your decision. Before colonial rule, artisanal mining was common. However, colonial laws introduced strict licensing requirements such as literacy. Yes, under an ordinance, if you couldn't read and write, you couldn't mine gold. Colonial laws. Understanding of legal terms. Even if you could read and write, but you couldn't understand legal terms, you could not mine gold in Ghana. It's funny, eh? And then proof of funds. Now that excluded most indigenous Ghanaians from legal mining. These measures reserved mining for the state and wealthy foreign interests, with some of these discriminatory laws remaining in place until as late as 1986. Currently, the law regulating artisanal mining, and by artisanal mining, I mean mining other than the big ones that go through the various licenses and the mining lease. So you can interpret that as small-scale mining. But the law regulating artisanal mining in sum is 1, the minister designates mining areas and grants licenses to citizens aged 18 and above. 2, the licenses are valid for up to 5 years, renewable but revocable. 3, the Minerals Commission establishes district offices for registration, supervision, guidance, and reporting. 4, there are supposed to be small-scale mining committees comprising the local assembly, traditional council, Minerals Commission, the Environmental Protection Authority to monitor and promote mining. 5, licensees must comply with standards on methods, safety, and environment, and sale regulations that the minister makes. 6, breaches, including abatement, or even fabricating or providing equipment for mining in water bodies, must attract serious penalties, including jail terms of up to 25 years. On paper, Ghana has an excellent framework, crafted after years of searching, yet implementation has failed. One reason is that gold and poverty cannot coexist in the same environment. The environment becomes the casualty. Let us sink in. For years, the big foreign businesses take the gold away. And finally, for just a little pollution of the river, who cares? You can make some gold. So gold and poverty cannot coexist in the same environment. The environment will suffer. But there is palpable government inaction. Suggestions, for example, to tighten the legal regime further, to include confiscation of all lands that are shown to have been given out by their owners for illegal mining, have fallen on deaf ears. Consider this summarized rendition of a recent statement by Ghana's first and freshly minted gold Shah. Says that now listen to this carefully. We don't buy illegally mined gold. So the government, Ghana, does not buy illegally mined gold. Then listen. But we currently can't trace its source. We are developing technology to enable traceability in September. And in 3 to 5 years, then we will take steps to exclude illegal gold. Then, if this sounds like official ambiguity to you, you are right. But more significantly, it underscores our lived reality, a reluctance by successive governments to enforce the law effectively. My proposals, as I said, are two. The one, we need a one-stop and independent Natural Resources Commission, one, with departments covering various sectors, remove direct government control over regulation and management of natural resource utilization. The government may issue general policy guidelines, but operational authority must rest with an independent body. Two, an independent National Prosecutions Authority, which merges the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Office of the Special Prosecutor into a truly independent authority led by a Director General. That body must operate without executive interference and handle all criminal prosecutions, which will then cover illegal mining. Now, the social contract. You must have read that Thomas Hobbes saw the state of nature where life, he says, was, quote, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. A constant state of war, which ended only when individuals surrendered their liberty to a sovereign in exchange for protection. The social contract enabled escape from the state of nature into civil society. But the threat of the state of nature returns if government collapses. Ghana's fourth Republican Constitution is arguably such a contract. But I suggest to you that concerning illegal mining, government has collapsed. And it is time for we, the people, from whom all power is derived under the Constitution, to consider options where the power to manage and regulate utilization of natural resources and the prosecution of all crime are taken from government's direct control and placed with independent constitutional bodies. Article 257, and let me clarify further. Article 257 vests all public lands and natural resources in the Republic, vested in the Republic, but it is held by the President on behalf of the people. So the Republic owns all public lands and all natural resources. But it is vested in the President as trustee. No, it is held by the President as trustee on behalf of the people. But this unique trusteeship does not include or does not vest management and regulation in this sui generis, that's this unique President trustee. That authority lies with designated constitutional bodies. Significantly, Article 258 establishes the Lands Commission. While the minister may issue general policy directions, the commission operates independently under Article 265, immune from all control and direction except where the Constitution specifies. So our Lands Commission is actually independent of the president. Don't ask me whether they assert the independence. That's another issue. But the Constitution says that it's independent. Countless Supreme Court decisions have affirmed that whenever the Constitution says an entity or office is, quote, not to be subject to the control or direction of any person or authority, unquote, that entity enjoys constitutional insulation. Notably, this first applies to the judiciary. Same words for the judiciary. That's why the judiciary is supposed to be independent. And then to the Electoral Commission, National Media Commission, Auditor General, Public Services Commission, National Commission for Civic Education, and the Lands Commission. These bodies therefore have judicial quality insulation, subject only to judicial review under Articles 23 and 296, and under Article 295 if they exceed or abuse their powers. However, the independence of the Lands Commission alone is further qualified by making the commission subject to the minister's general policy directions. General policy directions issued with presidential approval. Thus, the president trustee may issue broad policy but cannot directly manage or regulate public lands. Natural Resource Commission. We need to extend this insulation to a Natural Resource Commission. First, we need to consolidate and form a one-stop National Resource Commission with divisions for for mining, fisheries, water, forestry, under a one-stop commission. That's my proposal. Why? It will remove the confusion that illegal miners now take advantage of. Because to mine, you will need let's say the Mineral Commission's mining license. If it is in a forest area, to the extent that mining is extended, it's allowed in the forest, you need a forestry commission permit. If it involves water, you need a Water Resources Commission permit. Then you need an environmental permit. What has happened is that a lot of miners are very smart. They go for one and start mining. The police, when they go, do not know the difference between the three permits. So they show them one permit and the police leave. Okay, a license. Maybe it's just from forestry, or it's only from Minerals Commission. He hasn't obtained the rest. And so this disharmony is coming because we have several of these commissions scattered with no real links. Now, this will also streamline management, improve coordination, enhance resource allocation, promote sustainable practices, and lead to more effective resource governance. In Article 269, and I'm going to make a very interesting point here, the Constitution mandates Parliament to establish these commissions, minerals, forestry, fisheries, etc., to regulate and manage resources. The President is the trustee of these resources, but the actual power to manage and regulate their utilization is vested in the commissions, not the President, not the Minister. This raises a fundamental constitutional question about LI 2462, by which the EPA, and an authority created by statute, purpose to give the President management power over an aspect of mining. That is why that LI ought to be revoked as unconstitutional. We don't even have to discuss it. To the extent that it purports to give the President the power to give licenses to mine in forest zones, when the Constitution says that the power to regulate and management should be vested in a Natural Resource Commission, that LI is fundamentally unconstitutional. But it's very difficult to convince Ghanaians that there's a power that the President doesn't have. Our years of being under hard military rule embeds in our minds the concept of the strong man. So when people like me say, well, the President doesn't have the power to do this, people look at you, are you okay? The person is the President. How can you say that the President doesn't have the power? But read it. He's a trustee, but the power, if I say that, shall be regulated and regulated and managed. The utilization of the natural resource shall be regulated and managed by the Resource Commission. My further understanding was that Parliament was to establish the commissions and leave them to manage and regulate the relevant natural resources. That's what the Constitution says. Establish the commissions. Parliament has gone beyond that. It continues to legislate, which is regulation, and then has vested in the minister detailed management powers, especially over granting licenses. I'm suggesting to you that a lot of the practices that we are comfortable with are possibly unconstitutional. Parliament's only other constitutional involvement is under Article 268, where it must ratify, meaning approve, agreements granting rights to exploit natural resources. While this is a great opportunity for public consultation, particularly with affected communities and chiefs, they are often bypassed. For example, in 2017, civil society discovered that no small-scale mining license had been ratified by Parliament since the Constitution came into force on 7 January 1993. This rendered all such licenses unconstitutional, but the people were already mining. In fact, some of them had had their licenses renewed. Civil society demanded consultation and audits and a great opportunity for reform, they were ignored. By 2020, Parliament had quietly ratified all the licenses without the proper audit and consultation. My proposal is to keep the parliamentary ratification, but make consultation with affected communities and chiefs mandatory. However, the Minerals Commission, and I'm suggesting the Natural Resource Commission, should be granted the same constitutional insulation as the Lands Commission. It should be specifically empowered to issue constitutional instruments for sector administration and governance. The minister's current role in licensing must be specifically reassigned to the commission and leave the minister only general policy-making authority. Now I move to the National Prosecutions Authority. The issue, I humbly suggest, is not merely separating the office of the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice. It is about removing executive control over prosecutions. Article 88 vests the Attorney General with prosecutorial authority. But as a cabinet member, the AG is politically compromised. You can't expect him to seriously prosecute somebody that he's on the cabinet with. You certainly can't expect the Attorney General, to the extent that it's even possible under our constitution, it is not, to prosecute a president. But in Israel, they were prosecuting the prime minister. It's a different constitutional setup. But just think about it. Can you ever conceive of the Attorney General prosecuting the lands minister or the foreign affairs minister? Now, Ghana's half-hearted recognition of this problem led to establishing the Office of the Special Prosecutor with a limited remit, but significantly a statute-donated independence. So in the OSP Act, we provide that the Special Prosecutor shall not be subject to the direction and control of any other authority or person. We need to take boldly this step. We need to take several steps forward and notches higher. I propose amending the Constitution to delete Article 88(3) and 4 and related laws and transfer all prosecutorial power to a fully independent National Prosecutions Authority with constitutional judicial quality insulation. Historically, Ghana's AG has not always been a minister. Under the 1957 Constitution, the AG had prosecutorial autonomy. A separate minister for justice served the political elite. But this independence was eroded when the then AG Patterson left to become Chief Justice of Northern Rhodesia, now Zambia, in the wake of the Ashanti Interim Assembly brouhaha. And if you read our history, you find that it was a very significant constitutional evolution point when the Ashanti Interim Assembly elected D.T. Tamaklo as its chairman, and the CPP rightly objected, saying that he was an outside chairman. Jeffrey Beng led that. Now, the government asked Patterson to go to court. And Patterson said, I won't go to court. You can't instruct me on what to do. Beng was in Ghana at the time. He berated Patterson as being a glorified director of public prosecutions. The CPP as a party went to court and got the court order that that appointment was wrong. Now, in that brouhaha, Patterson left. His successor, Beng, helped to institutionalize executive control over the position. This became even more institutionalized in the 1960 Constitution. And from then on, the AG became a political appointee. And this is the point. If the government is reluctant to fight GALAMSEY, will an AG seriously prosecute GALAMSEY operators? If the government says, we are making so much money from gold, will an AG prosecute GALAMSEY operators? Later constitutional review bodies, the 1968 Akufo-Addo Commission and the 1979 Mensah Commission, recommended a return to independence, proposing the AG be appointed by the President in consultation with the Council of State for a fixed term with judge-like independence. But both proposals were rejected. And this does not appear to have even come up in the 1992 proposals. I support the principle of prosecutorial independence, but argue that it need not reside in the AG. we can and must create a separate authority. That body will merge the Director of Public Prosecutions, now under the AG and Minister for Justice, and the Office of the Special Prosecutor, operating with constitutional independence, headed by a Director General. I believe that this structure will restore trust and prevent abuses, like the infamous nolli prosequi that let a known and foreign illegal miner escape prosecution. Thankfully, she came back. Hopefully, she's still in jail. Further, although the Supreme Court appears reluctant to fully apply Article 296 to prosecutorial actions and decisions, because, in the words of the Supreme Court, they are clearly executive acts, these checks and accountability would be possible with an independent prosecutions authority. So in conclusion, I'm advocating for a constitutional amendment that creates a one-stop and independent Natural Resources Commission to regulate and manage natural resources, subject only to the Constitution and general policy directives. 2, constitutional amendment that establishes an independent National Prosecutions Authority to handle all criminal prosecutions. And 3, let them freely apply and enforce the law. Final words. I'm making good time. The current system has failed, not because of a lack of legal framework, but due to the lack of independent, accountable institutions. Ghana must rise to this challenge, not with more rhetoric, but with real structural reform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ace. Now I invite Professor Adu-Gyamfi to deliver his talk.
Good evening. I don't like to say I want to stand with the protocol, but under the circumstances, I think I'll have to. Time is a bit fast spent. Otherwise, I will go with Madam President, Chairman, Madam President, Vice President, past presidents, fellows, dear students. Yes, so after such a brilliant delivery and presentation, I'm at a loss what to say, because what I was going to say, a lot of it is here. So when I get to those areas, I'll just skip. Because I subscribe to the solutions, I subscribe to a whole lot of things he said, including the one-stop for minerals and one-stop for adjudication and all that. But yes, we are proffering solutions. I'm doing this together with my eminent senior. She's senior to me in the academy, so I defer to her. And she has been in the trenches with regard to these GALAMSEY things, and she has a lot of information. Therefore, I'll leave a lot of the technical things for her to handle. I must acknowledge all the others who have gone before us with the presentations that have been very fruitful. But the lecture I would like to offer some perspective, mainly in regard to history. Mining before colonization, colonial disruptions, colonial legacies imposed GALAMSEY governance, which has been alluded to by my learned Esquire. Economic dimensions of GALAMSEY, which will inform livelihood alternatives, whether we can do it at all, and then we'll provide further way forward to deal with present dangers. The definition of GALAMSEY we know, But it looks like there are various variations. Professor Oteng, my learned professor, chairman, said there's a wicked definition. I think you need to write it for us because it will inform what we are dealing with. For us, essentially, GALAMSEY is all small-scale mining. It refers to the nature of the way it's done. But now it's like synonymous with illegality. But its beginnings is deeply rooted in centuries-old traditional history. Professor Adu-Gyamfi will bear me out that the Portuguese actually landed on Zima coast before they came to Cape Coast. And you were doing GALAMSEY then. So artisanal mining, I would say for our purposes now, I would say GALAMSEY also. They're both historically deeply rooted in pre-colonial history and colonial governance system. It is now being treated as if it's a major post-independence thing, but our political situation, corruption, and disruptions in our economy have led us to this because, as H said, poverty and gold can never sit together. And this was there before the white man landed on our shores, the 1400s. But what we don't seem to realize that gold here attracted all the Europeans, as I'll show later, to our shores. If I were to ask how many castles and forts we have along our coast, I'm not sure anybody can tell. You usually say that we have about 30, 31. I'm told it's more than that. There are some that have gone next. Some have collapsed. But actually, at some point, we had about 60. And that shows the importance of gold and how it informed and fostered some wars in Europe, which you may not know. And that eventually, the warring and fighting for hegemony and for wealth led to the Berlin Conference. And that has actually followed us to this day because what was enacted there or whatever was discussed led to the scramble for Africa. And I don't think we've left the clutches yet of the colonial and imperial powers. Mining before the colonialists came, in Entsua-Mensah and all those areas, they had their way of mining. And gold was, am I going back? Yes. Wachim-Wasa and Zima, all those areas, gold was being mined. And it was a major economic activity, but also it was culturally and spiritually regulated. The chief, serving as a custodian of the land, held mineral resources in trust. And powers that be continued to hold things in trust. But there was some democratization there. So the custodians of land held mineral resources in trust of their communities and oversaw mining activities to ensure they aligned with the communal norms and cosmological beliefs. There were certain areas you couldn't just get up and go to. And the main method, as we say, was gathering the washings from the alluvial gold when it drained heavily, and hence the seasonal nature of artisanal mining in those days, which was carefully monitored by the chiefs. And contrary to popular belief, because of the way they regulated things, they didn't do much of surface mining. They gathered along the river banks, but they could also dig. People thought that didn't exist, but information exists to show that they could dig as far as 80 to 100 feet until they hit the water table, and then they went to another area. And they had ways of identifying where to find gold before the white men came. And that tradition still exists in those communities. And gold and poverty don't go together. So if centuries-old tradition has been coexisting presently with our economy, if they have the gold in their environment, they have the knowledge, they will go for it. In fact, I would say gold was used to be our traditional economic, was a currency of trade in our traditional economy in those days. And in fact, we had Ashanti gold weights, which are now collector's items. How am I going back? Where are you, technician? You have to show me your button, how to use it. So, you didn't just go anywhere. The ecological protection was rooted in the general indigenous spiritual cosmology. There were areas where forests and some forests you couldn't just enter. You had to perform some rituals before you got there. So there were sacred groves and water bodies which were protected by ritual prohibitions. Mining also, without ritual approval, typically from the chief priest or spiritual intermediary, was believed to invite ancestral wrath, misfortune, or communal calamity. These beliefs created a powerful moral cultural deterrent to reckless experimental exploitation. The colonialists came with their form of religion and told us that all that we had guiding our spiritual efforts and social efforts, everything was backward. And now we go anywhere. We even dig gold in some waters we shouldn't go near. So as I said, gold attracted the Europeans to our shores. Portuguese came here first landed in Asim, and then later on, Cape Coast. The Spanish came but didn't stay for long. The Dutch followed, and hence they had their court in Ashanti and the rest, and even invited some princes to the European courts just so they could indoctrinate them. The Swedish were here. The Germans came briefly. The Danish also came, hence Christians War Castle. Now, the British came and they stayed. And we are in trouble ever since. They had been fighting their wars in Europe, and Germany was then not even a state, or a unified state. But of course, amidst all this war and the explorers having discovered minerals on our shores, Bismarck called a conference to enhance his own standing and hoped that he would have a stake in the booty. And eventually, the scramble of Africa started. And when that happened, also following, colonization was intensified. And as we will find later, the British, when they say colonized and they wanted to possess all the minerals, they attempted to pass a bill, land bill, Ace may correct me, land bill in 1897. Yeah, 1897, which was severely fought against by the Aborigines Rights Society. And that's when that society came into being, and they succeeded in doing that. And from then on, the governor decided that he wasn't going to pass any bill, and he just used an executive order, the Ordinance of 1905. That ordinance is the spirit that has permeated all our laws to this day, and has left a kind of scar in our governance system whereby anybody in government will never let the land go or the minerals go. So the resistance that we're meeting, it appears It's taken root because of the way we've been brought up. Hopefully, things will begin to change. After the war, Bretton Woods institution and all that, because of spheres of influence that are created, carved out by the Europeans, it was reflected in the way IMF and World Bank deal with us. But it's all about gold, because if you examine it carefully, across the world, all the powers, all they want is mineral and mineral and mineral. And in fact, there was a book written by, I think, Richard Nixon, and the foreword was written by Henry Kissinger. It's called The Real War. I think it was published in 1974. They've divided the world into strategic areas, whereby they have areas of strategic reserve. It's all about minerals. So I'm only saying that I'll come to a slide which will say that we must have economic nationalism and express our sovereignty as a nation over our minerals and let it inform whichever contracts that we enter into with those who come under foreign direct investment. So with that, with the Ordinance of 1905, slowly the Crown had controlled the mineral rights, and then discriminating licensing regulations were instituted. Chiefs were deprived of the ability to regulate mining, thus weakening the link between resource governance and traditional local legitimacy. Eventual demonetization of gold dust, which we used with the Ashanti gold weights and other gold weights, completely killed us and marginalized our local miners as well. It's also because we couldn't use it in circulation anymore, it virtually impoverished the whole country. So the gold that the British took away, there was never any value addition, and they refined everything in Britain, sometimes eluting other minerals, and they were all then put in the British vault. The consequences of that, Gold Coasters were reduced to hewers of wood and diggers of minerals. The railways that they developed even just served those those areas. And by 1930, virtually all African concession holders have been pushed out. And that exclusion effectively crippled all the small-scale mining processes, including the banning of importation of mercury, which restarted only recently being in the 80s. Now, having excluded them, they struggled to enforce mining laws, if there were any. That's the regulations emanating from the 1905 ordinance. And the indigenous miners, which you will call today as illegal miners, then developed and adopted certain techniques of doing mobile operations. And some chiefs sympathetic chiefs protected them. And this is way back then. As a result of informal mining, not only informal mining survived, but flourished beneath the surface of colonial control. The informal resilience resulted in the post-colonial period, especially during the 1980s, under the Ghana Structural Adjustment Program. I will not go through the laws. I will only mention that the governor vested all land mining in the Crown. The governor was a dictator, not a democrat. Suddenly he goes, and then we are supposed to run a democratic system that has matured without corruption and so forth. So the Mineral Act of first one was in 1962. Is that right, Ais? That's the one. And vested power of ownership of minerals in the presidency. I will not dwell on that because it's all been said. But important thing to take home is that the spirit of the 1905 ordinance still reigns. And I'm glad to hear A saying that something needs to be done, and hopefully it will be done. Especially which currently there's a public consultation for a revision of the, is it 2015 or 2014, Minerals Law and Mining Policy in the Minerals and Mining Act. This has been dealt with. This also has been tackled nicely. But my comment about the structural adjustment program, we need to take our sovereignty and our nationalism and our patriotism, deepen it, and embed it culturally in our identity and be able to fight for ourselves. It was only in the Champion era that we began to do any such thing. Ghana briefly asserted unprecedented control over its mineral wealth in 1970 and pursued a bold national sovereignty over key mineral sector industries, notably the negotiation that resulted in 55% acquisition stake in Ashanti gold fields. The bold policy of resource nationalism marked deliberate reversal of colonial-era economic domination and moved toward national sovereignty over key mineral sector industries. And a champion didn't go to IMF, wouldn't be allowed to go, but he didn't want to go either. And he imposed austerity measures, I remember those days, but prioritized domestic capital formation and by embedding mining within the vision of self-reliant national development. No nation is rich without its own rich people. If we had 10 or 20 billionaires in Ghana, we wouldn't ever go to IMF. We can do things through our problems with them. So this assertion that there is a need for national sovereignty over our key industries, we should take that seriously. We should also think resource nationalism and think of prioritizing capital formation in Ghana. Otherwise, we are doomed. Rawlings' administration, particularly after 1983, which brought in the structural adjustment, started with the economic recovery program, and then structural adjustment thing. And IMF forced government to reduce its stake in major mining operations, revise mining laws, and to attract foreign direct investment that offered generous fiscal incentives to multinational corporations, including the mining corporations. But in the 80s, Ghana was under severe pressure. And I'll say that the liberalization of the mining sector under Rawlings remains a critical turning point in Ghana's post-colonial mining trajectory, one that shifted power further away from communities and the state toward foreign investors and private capital. Mining laws have largely perpetuated the colonial legacy of centralized control over mining resources, and this must change. And this is in support of what my friend said earlier, just now. I said I will not touch on these things again. But the large-scale mining corporations must be looked at carefully. As of 2013, 9 out of 10 major mining companies operating in the country were foreign-owned, and accounted for majority of the vast majority the national output. Newmont extracted about almost 700 ounces of gold, but Ghana has 0%. Maybe it's changed now. This imbalance has contributed to widespread perception of economic exclusion and dispossession, especially among mining communities located in the mining regions. So, Galamsey. Many view Galamsey as a form of resistance or reclamation, a way to access gold wealth that is otherwise seen to benefit multinational corporations and political elite. Moreover, the expansive concessions granted to large-scale miners, companies often overlap their ancestral lands and artisanal mining zones, displacing small-scale miners and intensifying tensions. The failure to integrate local communities into the benefits of legal mining has fueled a parallel economy where Galamsey becomes a survival strategy. This is just to illustrate our improved share in those mining mineral and sector. It's only bauxite that we have 20%. Ashanti Gold 1.7%. The rest is about 10%. No, I'm not wrong. Newmont 0%. But they dig the most gold. And I'm told the deeper we go, the richer the ore. So if it means nominating to Ghanaians and giving them a couple of billions to dig on our behalf, maybe we should look at that. Or raise some shares on a stock exchange only Ghanaians can buy, and maybe do something like that. We need to capitalize our people, and I repeat, Ghana will never be rich unless we have very rich Ghanaians, loyal to Ghana, nationalistic to Ghana. I won't touch on this again because lawyer Ankomah has done a good job. They're very effective with the mineral commissions, yes. And the chiefs, are they brokers or power brokers or rogue actors? In dealing with them, Ghana state reliance on militarized response to Galamsey, typified by operations such as Operation Vanguard, Operation Halt, echoes of colonial policing strategy that prioritize control over engagement have all failed. Economic dimension of Galamsey, informality, livelihoods, and national losses. Beyond these environmental and legal implications, Galamsey sustains a vast, complex economic ecosystem, often overlooked in the formal policy discourse. Illegal mining fuels multiple layers of informal activity across 4 interlinked sectors. Skilled labor. We have graduates actually working there, qualified engineers working there within the Galamsey ecosystem. And general labor, financiers, and the markets. The ecosystem includes excavator operators, welders, mechanics, cooks, water sellers, security personnel, equipment lenders, as well as downstream actors like hawkers, sex workers, drug dealers, and petty traders. Normally, these roles form a dynamic support economy in which entire communities are economically attached to Galamsey enterprise. A striking example of this was revealed recently when Ghana Armed Forces and Forestry Commission raided a massive illegal mining settlement in a place known as Abrawan-Ninkran, located near Subri Forest Reserve. Expected to confront approximately 2,000 illegal miners, the task force instead uncovered a sprawling encampment of about 10,000 individuals, probably more. This is just a schematic representation of what I've just mentioned. So in addition to sustaining local livelihoods, GALAMSEY imposes significant economic costs on the state and former mining sector. Ghana Chamber of Commerce has consistently highlighted how illegal mining reduces government revenues through tax evasion, loss of royalties, and smuggling of gold outside official channels. GALAMSEY also creates unfair competition for licensed small-scale and large-scale miners who face higher operational costs due to compliance with environmental and labor regulations. The proliferation of GALAMSEY undermines investor confidence and tarnishes Ghana's international reputation as a responsible mining jurisdiction, threatening long-term foreign direct investment in the extractive industry. If I had my way, Ghanaians will be allowed to own not less than 60% share of any extractive industry. Persistent crisis of GALAMSEY is not merely a product of weak enforcement or environmental neglect. It is deeply rooted in historical reconfiguration of land, authority, and legitimacy. Lessons from Ghana's pre-colonial traditions coupled with an honest assessment of post-colonial governance failures offer a roadmap for meaningful reform. These strategies must blend with indigenous wisdom, with structural reforms in law, policy, and practice. To rebuild local legitimacy by integrating traditional authorities into mining governance, chiefs historically acted as custodians of land and ensured ecological balance. The exclusion under colonial law severed accountability lines. A co-regulatory model where chiefs share in licensing, monitoring, and conflict resolution powers with state agencies could enhance local compliance and social cohesion. A co-regulatory model is urgently needed, one that formalizes the roles of chiefs in licensing, monitoring, and land allocation, plus dispute resolution. These roles should be codified through statutory instruments and are administered in collaboration with relevant state bodies, including the Minerals Commission, Environmental Protection, and now, Gold Board. The Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, together with the National House of Chiefs, should be empowered to develop clear operational frameworks that define the responsibilities, accountability mechanisms, and ethical codes guiding chiefs' engagement in artisanal mining and small-scale mining. To ensure greater accountability and structured engagement of traditional leadership in gold mining, Ghana should move towards institutionalizing collective chieftaincy authority, a reform that empowers House of Chiefs to serve as consultative and oversight body with formal responsibilities in land and resource governance. By formalizing the House of Chiefs' role, in national decision-making, Ghana can leverage its traditional governance structures for transparent, equitable, and culturally grounded resource management. The Chieftaincy Authority, comprising representatives of regional and paramount chiefs, would play a role in reviewing mineral development agreements affecting customary lands, participating in environmental oversight and dispute resolution, approving customary and land allocations for mining in coordination with state agencies, advising Parliament on cultural and socio-environmental impacts of mining, and holding its members accountable through internal ethical and disciplinary codes. Community mining has been touched on. It existed, but it failed. Safeguards were weak. There was limited transparency, minimal local participation in decision-making, and in many cases, the scheme replicated the very issues it sought to address: elite capture, land degradation, marginalization of genuine artisanal miners. Now, what they are thinking of, and has been touched on by Ace Square, is to build on and strengthen this model and a hybrid cooperative mechanism. Community mining model is being proposed, and hopefully it will be more accountable and locally embedded, designed to genuinely legalize the legal. Not the community mining, unlike the hybrid model that's being proposed, would be anchored in registered mining cooperatives and all that. I think ACE dwelt on this extensively and spelled it out. And I think it's worth considering. By decentralizing the ownership and institutionalizing transparency, the hybrid model, the community cooperative model, offers a path of formalization that is community-led, socially inclusive, and environmentally responsible. A durable solution to illegal mining must confront the root cause, lack of viable economic alternatives. Galamsey thrives not only because of gold's allure, but also due to the collapse of rural economies, widespread youth employment, and the absence of state investment in job creation. Attempts to eliminate Galamsey without addressing these structural gaps risk entrenching poverty and social unrest. A national strategy for alternative livelihood should include agro-based enterprises, skills training, and enterprise support. Tourism, ecotourism, this must be looked at. Integration with cooperative mining schemes, such as the hybrid community model we said being proposed. The alternative livelihood programs must be targeted, sustained, and locally driven. Emphasis on locally driven, designed in consultation with the affected communities. Most of the time, it is top-down approach, but there needs to be some research that will take in or gather in the needs of the affected group and what will work for them. Reclaim environmental patriotism through education. I know this will be dealt with extensively later. Ghana's recent relationship with large-scale mining corporations is structurally imbalanced. While these companies bring capital, technology, and expertise, their operations often reflect a form of extractive sovereignty where national resources are exploited with minimal long-term benefit to the state, traditional authorities, and affected communities. This dynamic, rooted in colonial-era concessions and perpetuated by liberalized policies, must be fundamentally restructured. A new mining compact is urgently needed. And the terms agreed should include increased royalty rates, windfall taxes to capture supernormal profits, and mandatory local contributions, requiring companies to invest directly in environmental restoration, essential services in the community where they operate. Ghana should establish formal training pathways for artisanal miners. These institutions could be housed within the technical universities and focus on environmental management, geology, legal compliance, and indigenous resources. Participants will be licensed and subject to codes of conduct enhancing professionalism and sector limiting exploitative practices. I was just offering something, but I suppose when it comes to it, they will offer the criteria for licensing, which should be strictly enforced, tied to approval of environmental and community readiness, and codify progressive sanctions for breach, establish an independent digital licensing audit system. In conclusion, persistence of Galamsey in Ghana is not merely a failure of enforcement, but a consequence of deeper historical rupture, where indigenous governance, communal stewardship, and local legitimacy were dismantled through colonial appropriation and post-colonial centralization. Reforms that overlook these foundations will remain superficial. A truly sustainable response must go beyond regulation to restore Ghanaian principles of custodianship, accountability, spiritual reverence for the land, while also reclaiming regional, national sovereignty of our mineral wealth. We are, at this juncture, in a favorable geopolitical climate where gold is the world's strongest performing commodity. I believe it's over 3,000 per ounce as we speak. And Ghana is adjudged Africa's largest gold producer. The Times strive to assert control, build national gold reserves, and anchor mineral wealth as part of a strategy to gain our economic independence in the long term. GALAMSEY and its complex ecosystem is here to stay, but if legalized, formalized, and effectively managed, it can evolve from a driver of environmental destruction into a legitimate engine for rural development, employment, local economic resilience, and national development. And in this view, geological survey could really map out where things can be found. And the licenses or application for licenses should go to specific areas that can even be tagged, mapped, and monitored through various electronic systems. The transformation demands that we protect and restore our rivers, forests, and biodiversity as part of a broader vision. This will be dealt with extensively by my esteemed colleague who has actually been in the trenches and the war front. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Now, inviting Professor Mamaa Entsua-Mensah to take the last portion of the presentation on the way forward.
I stand on existing protocols. And when you are the last person to speak, all the other speakers have said all the good things, and you are left with the ashes. But President, I hope you allow me to stand on existing protocols. Okay. Before I go on, I'd like to appreciate the efforts of the scientists of the CSIR. And I can see my friend, Mr. Kwekuata Digab Johnson, and all those who raised the alarm on GALAMSEY. I will be giving my lecture on the lenses of an ecologist, so that can you, no, the next one, the next slide. Okay. Apart from the CSIR, the Academy has also been very much involved in blowing the horn about GALAMSEY, that we are in trouble. Came out about reasons why we should repeal LI 2462. We can see Dr. Ken Ashigbe here, my senior colleague, whom I enjoyed putting this paper together with, said I had been in the trenches. And I know that Ken, if he's still here, Ashigbe, if he's still here, yeah. And Erastus. And the Catholic Bishops' Conference has been very consistent about condemning GALAMSEY. And I remember the Christian Council went to see the former president, and Reverend Joy Mante asking him, what is it about GALAMSEY that the government cannot stop? They should tell them. And then recently, the Catholic bishops also went to ask for a state of emergency over the mining areas. The media has been very good. GBC, TV3, CTFM, Joy FM, Joy News, and even within the academy, Professor Oteng-Yeboah, our chair, Professor Akusa, and Professor Frimpong Boateng, who wrote a report nobody wanted to believe. And today's speakers, the academy has asked for a national audit, a survey of the health implications and everything. We know what to do about Galamsey, but somehow we do not have the willpower to do so. In 2015, I gave a lecture on distressed fish in dying waters because of Galamsey. They are all dead. They are no longer distressed. They are dead. And in 2019, I asked if Ghana was on the brink of ecological suicide. I think, have we committed the suicide? Are we on the operation table having our stomach pumped out? But it's serious, the problem that we are in. If you look at the two maps, shows you the Galamsey sites. No, please, I'll stay on the maps. You see the Galamsey sites, and then I'd like you to zoom in on the next map, the legend, if it's possible. It shows the state of our, no, please zoom in on the map. It gives you, I want you to see the legend. Red is severely polluted, orange highly polluted, yellow polluted, and blue unpolluted. Can we see the map, please? The full map. The full map. Can you see the link with the Galamsey areas? Do you see the number of red rivers we have? The Bia, the Tano, Cobra, Pra, Miriam, Ofin, and then even going further north, the rivers that we've put our hope in, they are all getting there. Can we look at the Galamsey sites? Can you see, these are all the Galamsey sites, and this work was done by Overhaul et al. In 2024. So this was what they came up with. And if this shouldn't make you worry, I don't know what else will make you worry. You realize that we have a looming water crisis on our hands. And I do not understand why the main institutions tasked with the oversight of protecting our natural resources have failed to do what they should do. And they have a lot of questions to answer. If you look at this map again, you realize that the Western, Central, Ashanti, Eastern are all impacted. Illegal mining in the Ashanti region, particularly in districts like Obuasi, Amansia West, Entsua-Mensah, have led to the extensive deforestation, soil degradation, and water pollution of the area. The region has been significantly impacted ecologically, as has been documented in numerous studies. In the Western region, districts such as Takwa and Suyim, Christia Honi Valley, Wasam-Mfi East, which were once rich in natural resources, have witnessed extensive Galamsey operations, and has resulted in profound deforestation, water contaminating, and disruption of the local ecosystem. Please note that this used to be the richest region in Ghana in terms of the production of rubber, cocoa, and timber production. But now, because our attention is on hold, we are suffering from the Dutch disease, only looking at one item and forgetting that in Akan Palance, cocoa held our sights for a long time. But now we've forgotten about cocoa. Mining activities in districts like Kowu West, Birim Central, and Itiwa have led to a loss of biodiversity in the eastern region's forests and wildlife habitats, while degradation poses a significant challenge to local agriculture. In the rivers of Ghana, in the forest, there are certain species that are only found in Ghana. So I want to say that we have, looking at the second map, a looming water crisis on our hands. And what are the recommendations? We should strengthen our regulatory framework. The last two speakers told us about the beautiful laws we have in Ghana, but at the moment, we don't seem to let any of them work. The regulatory framework for water uses in the mining sector in Ghana is governed by the Water Resources Commission Act 1996. This act, along with subsidiary legislation, outlines the ownership, management, and use of water resources. Additionally, the Minerals and Mining Act 2006, Act 703, also regulates small-scale mining and others. Unfortunately, all these acts are there, but illegal miners do not adhere to any of this. And you see, some illegal miners are not only directly working in the water, they are working away from the water. They abstract water from the rivers. They change the course of rivers. And those who work even further out from the rivers, the runoff goes back into the streams and rivers. And if you go out to the field, and I think those traveling along the Kumasi-Konongo Road can even attest to it, the situation is dire. It's dire. And one recommendation is that all mining and water bodies should be stopped. Shamfans should be banned and confiscated wherever they are manufactured and sold. The sad thing is that we know where they are manufactured, we know where they are sold. We know that we are dying from the pollution of our rivers. You know, in war, you are not allowed to pollute your enemy's water. You are not allowed to, but we ourselves are polluting the water. We are at war with ourselves, polluting the water and killing ourselves. So, next slide, please. I would suggest that these are some of the recommendations. Rainwater harvesting, we have to go back to basis. For a long time, rainwater sustained a lot of places in Ghana. Mauli Secondary School has rainwater harvesting. Even this building has rainwater harvesting and filtration. The Science Faculty at Central University has rainwater harvesting, which was designed by one of the fellows, Professor Gajepo. Rainwater harvesting may not be the only solution, may not be the best solution, but along the river bodies where women need water for domestic purposes and other things, we need it to be clean, we need it for cooking. Rainwater harvesting, there should be a rainwater harvesting policy along all these GALAMSEY impacted areas because they are using the rivers anyway, the polluted rivers. And then also look at establishing more water quality monitoring stations, along the rivers so that they can tell us what is happening. We need to implement better treatment technologies. The treatment technologies are getting more and more expensive. Ghana Water has been complaining bitterly for years, but we don't seem to be bothered about it. And I think that we should really look at it. And I think that when we talk about responsible mining, the politicians like to talk about that. It's about water management, land reclamation, renewable energy. Can the illegal miners afford all this? So it's not just about talking about it. We should say things that we can actually do. We need to use drones and remote sensing and to tell us for surveying, for mapping, and monitoring mine sites, and providing real-time data and optimizing our operations. Next slide, please. I'm going back to the rainwater harvesting system. This is something that was used in Ghana for years. And right now, there's a lot of flooding, at least with a lot of houses harvesting the rain. It's sustainable. It reduces runoff. It's a good climate resilience practice. It is I think that at the moment we have water quality concerns about rainwater, but we can also clean it up with proper collection and storage practices. So I strongly advocate for a rainwater policy, harvesting policy in Ghana at the moment, because we have really, really destroyed most of our water. Next slide, please. And as Professor Adu-Gyamfi mentioned earlier on, we have lost respect for nature. Before, you couldn't mine in waterheads. You couldn't, where the water is drawn from, there'll be a forest there. And that is there to conserve the water. All our traditional management practices had scientific basis, but we've thrown them all out. And I did work along the freshwater what is in Ghana and rivers and lagoons. And because of the traditional management practices, a lot of places were pristine, but now we do not respect that again. Next slide, please. So it's important for our young people to know the importance of ecological protest. And then the health risks. In a lot of these mining areas, it's sad, but I mean, they have a lot of health risks due to the contaminated water, dust, and soil. I think that we are asking, and I agree with the Catholic bishops, there should be a 6-month to 1 year state of emergency on all mining areas. And I'd like the MPs to go back and collect data about the health situation in their constituencies, the environmental situation, the state of the rivers, the waters, their constituencies, are they able to afford water? Are they able to get potable water? I mean, the vices that are pertaining there, the loss of forest area and degradation, they should all go back to their constituencies and collect this data. We have signed the Minamata Convention on Mercury. We signed it in 2014. We like signing agreements. We do not abide by them, you know. So, and this one talks about the protection of human health from mercury. You can have neurological damage from inhaling too much mercury, you know. And all these pits that are dug, mosquito breeding sites, and children and pregnant women, I always think about them when I see all these polluted waters. You know. So, I mean, NCC should be resourced to go around the mobile vans. Let's go back to basis to educate people about the dangers of illegal mining. The next slide, please. Okay, so this map again, I'd like you to look at the forest risk areas. These are the forest risk areas. And the sad thing is that they are in a tropical rainforest. This work was also done by Ofori and his team. And look, please look at the legend. The red is the high-risk areas. Green, very low risk. There's a lot of red and pink, and hardly any green. This should be a cause of worry for Ghana. Please put the two maps side by side. Okay, so this is what it is. We had a rainforest, a savanna, and all that. This is how the map looks like now in 2024. In 2024. So we need to reclaim our land. And the government says it's doing what it can. I suppose it is. But you see, when the government is in financial trouble, they ask the economists. We are in ecological trouble. They should ask the scientists and ecologists. But somehow we don't matter. And they don't listen to what we tell them. The next slide, please. So I'm saying that, for example, as a matter of urgency, they should introduce a new course in the university, ecological or ecosystem restoration, because we'll need that. And the CSIR for several years has reclaimed land for big mining companies. I think that with the Forestry Commission, the Forestry Research Institute, some universities, the University of Energy and Natural Resources, Power Branch, University of Mines and Energy, all the relevant institutions should be resourced to lead efforts to reclaim and restore degraded land. And I think that illegal miners who are caught as part of their punishment should be made to restore some degraded land instead of languishing in prison. They should be put to work. The next slide, please. You see, it's not just a forest that you see. A forest is made up of its native species, and this enhances biodiversity. It attracts certain kinds of frugivores who encourage seed dispersal. It has species who form mutualistic associations, and they foster wildlife populations with animals. They have species who are polydispersed, like light fruit, but they facilitate their colonization. So, in fact, they are fast-growing species, species tolerant to poor soils, nitrogen-fixing species. You see, God in his wisdom put all these things together in a forest. And then we go overnight and just mow the forest down. Next slide, please. Next slide. And you see, all this that we are doing, we have signed all the climate change agreements. But forests, they serve as carbon sinks. They absorb the carbon dioxide and and contribute to greenhouse emissions, you know. And forests play a crucial role in regulating our climate change by influencing our rainfall patterns. Deforestation can disrupt all this, and then we have drier climates, we have reduced agricultural yields, and then we have flooding, and we don't understand why. The next slide, please. Cocoa, our beloved cocoa, that we have forgotten about because we have a new wife. Cocoa is very, very important to the Ghanaian economy, has been. But the problem is that when even the land is reclaimed, it's very difficult to grow food and tree crops. There are only a few things for human consumption because the poisonous chemicals are accumulated in the food chain. So the only thing you can do is either rubber or teak, you know. But most rural communities are not ready to wait for rubber or teak. But cocoa has been one of our major earners. We should not forget about it. If illegal mining is destroying the land that cocoa is grown on, let's just look for other land to grow cocoa, because cocoa has been good to us. And then other crops like cashew and all that. Let's not just throw out the baby with the bathwater. Next slide, please. And then also, when we are talking about all this, we need to tackle the causes of illegal mining. Poverty. But now it's not just poverty because we have educated people in it. You need to address the socioeconomic factors. There was a time that too many people were laid off. There was a time that the government was not employing any young people. So you find that there was a large pool of unemployed people, and GALAMSEY was a quick way of making money. Corruption is now endemic in Ghana. The people, as my friend Ken says, who are fighting the fire are the ones who are lighting the fire. So, I mean, it's very, very difficult because ecologists and scientists can shout all they want, but they hold the reins in their hands. I think that it's very important, apart from strengthening the judiciary. There was a time I had a chat with Sir Dennis, that the lawyers and the judiciary should have special training in environmental management, so that when they are giving the judgment, they understand what has happened and do something about it. It's not only the lawyers. I think that the House of Chiefs, they should also have that training. They should have presentations made to them. The next slide. And this is something that reluctantly I would suggest, but the way we are now, that is the best thing to do. I think that during the 6 months, 1 year state of emergency, we should register all Ghanaian miners, legal or illegal, so that we know who they are. And then, after they have been registered, they should be given concessions not near water bodies or forest areas, you know. And those who register should be trained in responsible mining, as they are always saying it. And I mean, if they want to be trained in other alternate livelihoods, they should be allowed to do so. But then they should help to reclaim a devastated area. That's why it saddened my heart that the Interior Minister said that when the Chinese are caught, they'll be deported. I think it really bruised our wounds, you know, because you cannot go and do what they do here in China, but they do the things they do here enabled by Ghanaians. The next slide, please. So these are the challenges to formalizing illegal mining. You know, corruption, political interference. I think that the MPs in Parliament should call themselves out, those who are involved in illegal mining, because they say that they are not involved in illegal mining, but there should be a special study, both NPP and NDC, those involved in illegal mining, because they are supposed to serve us, they are supposed to look out for our interests. So how can you do that? How can you are there to represent your people, not your party. And the country is more important than the party. So how well are they representing the people if the water is polluted, if deformed babies are being born, and if the land is degraded? These are questions I think they should ask themselves. The next slide. So I am saying that illegal mining should be formalized in a way, and that would stop a percentage of our troubles. And this is the elephant in the room, the Chinese. I mean, we have enabled them because with their capital, they outcompete their Ghanaian counterparts. And then with the help, connivance of our chiefs and police and local authority, they just do what they have to do. But I think that it's a kind of new colonialism. It's a kind of slavery because there are places in the Western region where there are Chinese townships. The signboards are in Chinese. We can't go and do that in China. So it's a result of all the weak regulatory strategies, enforcement, and all that. And this is something we should set up. Let's not pretend it's not happening. It is happening. We are going to have a big social problem on our hands one day. Most of them, of these illegal mining sites, are now heavily armed. And that is how Boko Haram started. Small, nobody cared. Small. Before we are aware, they will be dictating to us. The next slide. I have always said that we should have strong institutions, and Professor Adu-Gyamfi mentioned that. Strong institutions without political interference. EPA, Forestry Commission, Minerals Commission, Water Resources Commission, the security agencies, they should be allowed to operate without political interference. And it's sad that some of the leadership of these institutions are allowed to go scot-free. They should be held accountable and asked, how come we are where we are? And we don't want to know. We are not asking the questions. The next slide. In 2019, EPA did something which I think was wonderful, and I think they should do it again. They conducted environmental impact assessments throughout Ghana. They launched the State of the Environment report, but they've only done this in 2005 and 2016. This is something I think they should do every 2 or 3 years. They should be resourced to do it, so we know what is happening to our environment. And they worked with the Ghana Statistical Service to compile a national compendium of environmental statistics, utilizing the framework of the development of environmental statistics, which I think was a novel thing to happen. And this activity should be carried out. That's what they should be doing. And they should do this without any fear or favor, without political interference. The next slide. During the Interministerial Commission, there was a software called GALAMSEY. And GALAMSEY was a computer app, and it comprises of a web and a mobile embedded in GPS software. And it was a way of recording what was happening on the field real time and reporting it. And the Minerals Commission was working with EPA, with Natural. So I think we should take a look again at GALAMSEY. And I know that GALAMSEY is something Professor Frimpong Boateng is very passionate about because he feels that it can work. So we shouldn't, as I said, always throw the baby out with the bathwater. We should consider trying it again. And I hear that Minerals Commission has a state-of-the-art tracking system for its excavators that is dormant. Why? So the next slide. The next slide, please. Okay. So we need to strengthen law enforcement. And Kelvin Kiran and his colleagues did something in 2016. We need to enforce our existing laws. We should have stricter penalties for offenders. We should equip and empower law enforcement agencies. The poor Forestry Commission staff, they are always being attacked. We should provide the necessary resources and training to monitor and patrol the illegal mining areas. Implement regional task force and community policing properly, without it being compromised. Establish regional task force bases And I think that in collaboration with the chiefs and the district assembly, we should have about 6 stations in Ghana, 2 in the western region, 1 Ashanti, 1 eastern, 1 in the north, and 1 in the eastern part of Ghana. And the Navy, the Blue Water Guards are grouping ears because they are going to face people with arms. They should just help with tree planting. The Navy, the Army, the Air Force should work together, patrol these illegal mining sites. This is terrorism. We don't seem to be taking it as seriously as we should. And these areas should be areas where reports should be given. Periodically, they go on patrol, and we pray that they will not be compromised. But we need that. And when the illegal miners are caught, they should be properly dealt with. There used to be a place in Thailand called Bangkok Hilton. It was a prison for drug peddlers. And they treated you so badly, you didn't want to go and stay there. So I think that the prisons in Ghana are equally good for the Chinese. And the next slide, please. I mean, if there are any loopholes in our mining laws, as Ace pointed out, let's close them. We should streamline licenses for small-scale miners whilst insisting that they adhere to environmental rules. As large-scale miners post bonds, I wonder if they also post bonds. But once the illegal miners are formalized, then the enforcement and the regulation will be easier. The next slide. And we should use technology, drones, satellite imagery, remote sensing, to identify illegal mining sites. You know, we should implement mining certificates and traceability systems. The Gold Board is saying that they will now do that, but we should do it now and not wait till September. You know, and restore and rehabilitate mined out areas. We should start now. We seem to just leave them there where there's enough information for that to be done. You know, and encourage the use of environmentally friendly techniques. That can be done with the miners at UMAT and other places. And we should use AI, because AI is a thing these days to make sure that our applications are okay and implement our reclamation and afforestation programs. The next slide, please. Community engagement is paramount. You find that communities will be there and then order from above, and then people will come with mining license. All that should be stopped. And I think that this is where we should involve the communities in the planning and implementation of solutions. The district assemblies, all state institutions, NGOs, the Christian and Muslim communities. I mean, I'm sure if the government says, help us, they will find their niches and try as much as possible to help the government fight this cancer. And then in raising public awareness, we should talk to them about the negative impacts of illegal mining. And this is where I strongly advocate that the NCC should be properly resourced. We should have mobile vans like before, when we wanted a message to go across. There should be cartoons. There used to be Captain Planet. Why can't there be cartoons in our local languages telling the children about the ills of illegal mining? You know? And then alternative livelihoods, we shouldn't just talk about it. We should make sure that we use alternative livelihoods that the communities want. We shouldn't enforce new farming and poultry on them if that is not what they want. You know? And then there should be reporting systems. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so I talked about the satellite imagery. There's also ground truth verification. Ghanaians have the expertise to do all this. They have the expertise. The government should just have a war room with everybody bringing in their expertise, and all this can be done. You know? And scientific research, you need to know what you have. I don't think we know what we had before all these things happened. That will inform you on the solutions. Scientific research is very important to resource the universities and the scientific research institutions. As I said, when the country is in financial crisis, you ask the economists. We are in an ecological crisis. Summon the ecologists and the scientists. The next slide. How do we prevent young people from engaging in galamsey? This is so difficult because they have seen and smelt money. It's very, very difficult. So, and when we are doing the vocational training, as I said, we should target it to what they want and not just poultry and agric, carpentry, tailoring, welding, metalwork. There was a time during the oil boom, some ships wanted welders who could weld in a straight line. They could hardly get any Ghanaians. They had to go to Cameroon and Gabon, Electrical work, automotive repair, construction, And these Chinese, why did we learn galamsey from them? We can learn all these new innovative things they are doing in AI. I suggest that the China Gold Board, China-Ghana, board that they have formed, not just talk about mining, but talk about how our young people can be given skills to, improve themselves. Agricultural development is also very important. And then small business development, those who want to go into small business. And I think that we should really target these mining areas. It will be difficult because overnight they've seen money that you and I haven't seen in 1 year. But if we don't do this and save our young people, they are our best resource, our best capital. And if we don't do this now, Ghana will be a failed state someday because the kind of vices that occur in these mining areas, we will be shocked. Red, we are worried about red. I think that it's gotten out of hand. That's why the news has come out, The next one, the gold board. The gold board is a good idea, but they should be careful. They should be transparent about their operations, It's very crucial. And what is said about we haven't got the equipment for traceability in September, that is nebulous. They should do it properly and make sure that everything they need to do before they are blacklisted, they do, And there should be strong enforcement. I'm tired of rhetoric. We should put our money where our mouth is, And the thing is that we shouldn't be so happy selling off our gold, because there's an international plan. The next slide. I had the shock of my life when I realized that we weren't even among the top gold producing countries. You see China there. China has a lot of gold, and it's allowed one province in China to come to Ghana to mess us up. And then Australia, Russia, US, Canada, they all have gold. They all have gold. The next slide. And these are the countries, top 10 countries by gold reserves. We aren't even there. America, Germany, Italy, France. How did they get the gold reserves? America has gold, China has gold. But some of these countries, Switzerland, how did they get their gold reserves? So we should add value to our gold. And we should keep some of our gold, not just sell it all off. That's the plan. Watch these third world countries mess themselves up, finish their gold, and then at the end of the day, we'll still be champions. The next slide. We can add value to gold. One of the fellows in the academy, Professor James Dakwa, has been working on adding value to gold and also gold being used in medicine. And he has helped Botswana to beneficiate their critical minerals. And he is working in Ghana, and nobody will give him the light of day. But gold is not just jewelry, it's an investment. It plays a role in technology and industry, electronics and medical devices, and it's in high demand. And I hear that there's a new drug that is made from gold, and it helps with arthritis, but it is so expensive. I wish I could afford it. But you see, I'm just saying that smartphones use gold. We shouldn't just look at gold as its ore and as its bars. We should go beyond that. And if we go beyond that, we'll create more jobs for our young people. We'll have our young people more skilled. And we should look at the larger picture, not just selling ore and getting our royalties. The next slide. The next slide, please. Okay. I have a short message for the Ghanaian people. We have helped to be where we are today. We have enabled others to mess up our environment. Now Ghana Water is saying that the turbidity levels of our water cannot be sustained. Experts say the country will be importing water by 2030. CSI Water Research Institute predicted this 20 years ago. And research has linked water pollution from GALAMSEY to chronic diseases such as kidney failure, birth defects, and cancer. We need to investigate this and find out where all this is happening. Do you know where your food is coming from? Do you know what kind of water is used to water your vegetables? We don't care because it's not happening in Accra. We should care. Do not ask for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee, you know. And God says, what would it profit a man if he gains the whole world, yet forfeits his soul? Luke 9:25. Let's think about that. People of Ghana, let us stop being corrupt. The officials in those who are the gatekeepers have helped us to be where we are now. Let us be a bit more patriotic. Our parliamentarians, as I said, they should ask themselves why they are in parliament. I hope I will not be held to any disciplinary committee. I'm talking as a citizen. Are they there to represent themselves, the people or the party? Now the party seems to be more important than the country. They should not enact laws or sign deals which inure to only their benefits. It is said that politicians are ruining Ghana. The jury is still out there. You know? So I like them to know that governance is a serious matter. Governance is not student politics. So governing the country is serious business, so they should sit up. There's a lot of governing to be done. And our chiefs, Nananum, please, as custodians of the natural resources, let us recognize our customary laws, yes, and everything, but in using our resources, let us think of the next generation. You know, we need to appeal to them to streamline operations and understand the environmental impacts of what they are doing. It's not just the money now, you know. And then I'd like to send a message to the president. Mr. President, you have made president for a time like this, considering the overwhelming majority you and your party received in the elections. You are unique because you have risen through the ranks. You have been Deputy Minister of Communications, Vice President, and finally President. I know you are a listening president, as they say. Please let us pause and reset the illegal mining landscape in Ghana. Your Vice President is a member of this academy, and we wish both of you well. Ecologists are saying that Ghana is running on borrowed time, where its environment is concerned. Health experts are worried about all the health implications illegal mining brings. Sociologists are worried about the rising level of vices in mining areas, and armed illegal miners should be a cause of concern. Please repeal LI 2462. It's not helping anybody. And put in place a state of emergency in mining areas for about 6 months to 1 year. The people of Ghana will thank you for it. God bless Ghana, and thank you for coming to listen to this lecture. I ask God to give me the strength to stand to give to this lecture.
I believe that we have been educated this evening, listening to these three very eminent Ghanaians attempting to provide or offer some solutions to the menace of GALAMSEY. This is a public forum, and one of the things that we do is because we have invited you, the public, we give you an opportunity to also air some views, but the views will normally be in a form of a question and answer period. Now, time is far spent, but I'll be very delighted if, especially the young ones, will ask questions. So I'm going to open the floor, and in the first instance, I want to see 3 hands that will ask a question. 3 hands. I can see one over there. Please, those of you who are helping us with the microphones. Okay. There are some old people who don't have to walk here. So can you just walk to him and give him the microphone? I'm still trying to identify any more hands. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you very much, and thank you to all the presenters. I just wanted to ask Ankomah, I like the idea of having independent commissions, but what I find in this country is that once they are appointed by someone, they feel answerable to that person. We do a lot of self-censorship. How will the heads of these organizations be appointed? I hope it will not be appointments by the president in consultation with this thing. It doesn't work. There will be no independence.
Thank you. I want to identify 2 more hands, then my colleagues who are on the podium here will respond. Oh, okay. I can see another hand over there. Yes.
Thank you very much, Madam President, Professor Chair, and all protocol duly observed. My name is Gladys Jansi. I'm a senior lecturer at the School of Nursing and Midwifery, University of Ghana. I have benefited from the kind grace of Madam President for this invitation, and it has opened my mind. And as I listen to all the solutions professed from day 1 till now, I ask myself, what is going on? And then I feel like borrowing from the former Vice President, the fundamentals are weak. And what are those fundamentals? It's our values. Everything that is happening is because our values are depleted. I don't know what word to use for it. It's difficult to find 10 Ghanaians and ask questions, and you see that you expect that at least 50% will have love of country at heart. But primarily, everybody seems to be selfish. If you give me an opportunity now, I will think about how much money I can make. So I want to add my contribution in terms of the fact that we should also look at the moral theory lens of the conversation around GALAMSEY in general, because the ecologists will speak. If they are not listening to the ecologists, I wonder whether they will even be listening to the moral theorists and the need for us to enforce moral development. If you listen carefully, when the GAAS were in charge of the forest was safe. Nobody attempted to go there. Unfortunately, human beings have also possessed the GAAS. So now fights, guns and knives, they are fighting over the GAAS in the forest because they want power to control the resources. So we are not safe until we resolve the issues of ensuring that we imbibe the right values in our young children, and I thank God the students are here. We are missing out on the values. If you set up I like the lawyer's proposition for a natural resource commission. But when he continued, I asked myself, and my sister confirmed my worries, that why would you set up a natural resource commission and in a matter of time it becomes politically colored? Then what is the gain? Okay. And then I asked, have you also submitted some propositions to the Constitutional Review Commission about these great thoughts? And how do we keep the political colors out? Again, the underlying factor is the values. And I want to say that if our values are weak, no amount of legislation will save us. Rather, we need to improve on our values, because the legislations and the laws will only migrate the beneficiaries of the system, and the environment will continue to be what it is. Thank you, and congratulations to the speakers for opening our minds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm still trying to identify a third hand. Okay, there's a third hand here.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much to all the speakers. And a special thanks to Professor Entsua-Mensah for raising the alarm bells so many years, decades ago. My question is very simple. I'm a 69-year-old grandmother, but very passionate about GALAMSEY. What can I do in this fight? I feel so helpless. So any suggestions, please?
Thank you very much. Excuse me. I think I will give the floor to Ace. I think there was a question that was addressed to you, and I would like you to pick it up.
Hello, thanks. Well, you've asked, Madam, you asked a very important question, buttressed by the other lady. How will they be appointed? A bit of our constitutional history. The 1969 presented us a good opportunity to look at ourselves and to fashion something going forward. And that was really the evolution of these independent constitutional bodies, where so the Electoral Commission and later the Press Commission, Public Services Commission, were all kind of hived off the executive branch so as to insulate them from partisan political control. Believing that a ceremonial president will not have as deep party stripes as possible. Now, that is well-nigh impossible, even if you look at the system that came out of the 1969 situation, where anyway, but it was thought that the ceremonial president making the appointment with in consultation, let's say the Council of State, would arguably fairly insulate the person from partisan political pressure. Whether that really works or not, the sweetness of the pudding is in the eating of it. I have seen governments appoint judges that they believed will take cases their way and get interestingly surprised. I think that in my experience, even if somebody appointed to an independent office finds himself or herself beholding to the appointing authority, thankfully the people of Ghana, whether we like it or not, give either of the two parties 8 years. And sometimes when the 8 years turn, we begin to see very interesting manifestations in these offices. For the longest time, even the people appointed to these offices did not believe that they were independent. We had to take the Auditor General to court for the court to order him to disallow and surcharge, a power that is expressly given under the Constitution before the Auditor General started doing it. And so it sort of ties in with what Madam is saying. What can we all do? We can discuss modes of appointment, and there have been several. For example, the way in which the special prosecutor is now appointed. Yeah, if you have a parliament that is heavily weighed by one side, it might tilt. There are countries in which the president only appoints ministers. Every other public office is by advertisement, application, interview by a Public Services Commission. The framers of our Constitution kind of foresaw that and said that the Public Services Commission is supposed to be independent of government, although government appoints them. Whether we have achieved that since 1993, once again, the jury is out on that. But I'll suggest that we keep trying and keep evolving ways of appointing them in such a way that they will not be beholden to the appointing authority. Else, then we should, as they say, lock it, everybody should leave, and the last person leaving should remember to turn the lights off, assuming doom so is still with us, assuming we still have power. And so I'll say that I have no cut and dried answers. I think we've tried several modes of appointment. The thing about the 1969 situation is that after the Constitution was overthrown, in the 1979 experience, when we went as executive president, I don't think we paid too much attention to what we had intended to achieve with a ceremonial president. And so then an executive president who is a product of a partisan process was given the power to make these appointments in consultation with the Council of State, in the assumption that the Council of State would bring some independent pressure to bear. I think we are all seeing that some of these things are like, we can only hope that it does well. But we can't stop trying. I will suggest that when it comes to these constitutional offices, going forward into a constitutional process, the constitutional amendment process, we should, it's still the president who appoints majority of the Public Service Commission. We can look at that. But we should specifically provide that these must be advertised, people must apply for it, they must go through a public interview process, and where the public has an input. So if I've applied for the position and people believe that I'm really partisan, at least a protest will be raised. Often it is sunlight and sunshine that takes away the darkness. And if the people know that Ghanaians are watching them and you were flagged as being a possible partisan hack, when you go to office, hopefully you would seek to assert some influence. But the Constitution gives political independence and financial independence. So that, for example, they say that the terms and conditions of the people who occupy those offices cannot be changed to their disadvantage in their time. I will say that the Supreme Court has done its bit. When the last president instructed an independent constitutional office holder, the Auditor General, to go on leave, we screamed and shouted, "Mr. President, you have no such power." Majority of Ghanaians look at us like we're out of our minds. How can you say that the president doesn't have such a power? After all, he's the one who appointed him. They said, but the Constitution says he appoints him, but he can't fire him. And he can't even ask him to go on leave. Come in here, Ghanaians. But people must go on leave. Leave is good for you. If you don't go on leave, how do we find what you are hiding, etc., etc.? Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, the fight is against ourselves. The very people we are trying to fight for these things, they will fight you back. The back and forth when people have to find money to go to court. And the thing about the court is that it often delays. By the time the court came up with a judgment, that looked the president in the eye and told him that, Mr. President, you have no power to send the Auditor General on leave. His time in office had left. Somebody else had been appointed. But we can't give up, right? We just have to keep trying. Now we know that no president can ask the Auditor General to go on leave. Years ago, the presidents were asking the Auditor Generals to leave, and they were leaving. Now we know that a president can't. That is how we build a nation. It is said that we may not be able to change the entire fabric at a go, but we can change the strands of the fabric. Very soon, we'll see that we have a new fabric, not by throwing everything away, but by changing the strands. So, but my suggestion is that these positions should be advertised publicly. The applicants should be known. They should go through a public interview process. Hopefully, a Ghanaian will emerge who, and I think there are Ghanaians who love this nation more than they love themselves and their appointing authorities. So what can we do? I would say that we have to keep talking. In my years in civil society, I have learned one thing. If you stare sufficiently long and hard at the politician, he blinks first. But often, it is the wherewithal that we have to continue staring and to continue fighting. Nobody thought that the Auditor General would disallow and surcharge. We took the crazy step of going to court. According to the World Bank, within 3 years of the Supreme Court giving that order, and I can share the World Bank link with everybody, the Auditor General, I think, had recovered over 50 million cedis from disallowing. Basically, people are taking our monies and run away with it. He recovered that. And then everything went pear-shaped, as we all know. So it's possible. We can do it. And you know what? After that decision, the World Bank then started getting a lot of developing countries to pass in their laws the provision we have in our constitution, so that their auditors general can also disallow and surcharge, and then we mess ours up. It is frustrating, but we have to keep fighting. So let's keep staring at them. Let's keep up with the advocacy. When you speak, of course you will get attacked. You can see how many times I am attacked. But if you keep the focus, I think that we can make the change, changing the fabric a strand at a time. I've talked for too much.
Thank you very much.
To the grandmother, I think that you can write stories, you can go on air, you can be part of an advocacy group. There's something everybody can do about this illegal mining.
Thank you. I was tempted to open the floor again, but it appears I don't see any enthusiasm from anywhere for either a question or a comment. Okay, so I think we'll draw a curtain. Okay, I can see a hand now, yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Sika from Radio University of Ghana. My question is to Lawyer Ankomah. The question of the LI 2462 being unconstitutional per his submissions. And I'm wondering, if that is unconstitutional, then why do we have to probably waste our time in terms of now lobbying Parliament and the President to do that? Why don't we test the waters at the Supreme Court? Thank you.
No, not the last. I think there's another hand here. There's another hand.
So thank you. Mine is not a question, but it's following through. Just to answer your question, we are currently in court on LI 2462. There's a court case that we are pursuing. But if you listen to the strands in all that we have said, I know the academy would put everything together. But unfortunately, the 21 days are counting. So the LI 2462, since Parliament resumed, the numbers are being counted. So what I would urge the academy to do immediately is tomorrow to write to Parliament. We now have 7,700 or so petitions signed online. But there's a lot more that have signed physically. Is to write to Parliament. The academy should write a petition, particularly to the Speaker, the majority leader, to say they should halt it. It is great that we're looking at revising Act 703. But as A said, there's several things about that particular LI that is wrong. Apart from the fact the constitutional basis, apart from the fact that the EPA had no parent law to ground an LI on, apart from the fact that we had turned, if you look at the draft that even was suggested, where we had a cap on it and all of that, there's various elements in that law that makes it bad. And that argument should not be made that if you take away, you revoke the LI, there will be a vacuum. No. We can go back to the guidelines, and the guidelines time, it was better than what we are currently doing. So my suggestion and plea to the academy is immediately to isolate this. If you look through all the speeches that have been given, the LI has been everybody's. We all agree it's a bad one. His Excellency the President agreed before he became president that it was bad. The former president that we accused that did a bad job had a revocation instrument that he was taking to Parliament to revoke it. So the president, just as he's done with other things, should walk that particular talk. Let's revoke it and then use the opportunity of this revision that the government has started to put in place a better system to be able to manage what it is that they wanted to do. So we should do that as an academy immediately and make sure that the media would also carry that particular one. And so that we can bring the pressure to bear. Otherwise, like they do for all allies, 21 days, it will mature and they would have amended it. And have just done a little portion of what we are all asking should be done. So that's what I will plead, that as an academy we should do immediately.
That is noted.
Okay. Why waste time going to the Supreme Court? Sir, the gentleman at the back. I think that it is quicker, it's a quicker turnaround when Parliament revokes a subsidiary legislation than go to the Supreme Court. Going to court is not just filing a piece of paper. I'll give you an example. Occupy Ghana and Attorney General. Our submissions were 300 pages. Sir, are you listening? The gentleman who has the question. Yes. Occupy Ghana versus Attorney General. It was 300 pages of legal material. And if you are going to the Supreme Court of Ghana in a constitutional matter where at the minimum 7 judges will sit, you have to file 15 copies, hard copies of the document. So you file it, they serve the Attorney General. Attorney General has time to respond. We'll also file the arguments. When we filed that case, the Attorney General actually said we didn't have capacity. So we have to file back to address capacity. On the Christmas day before we filed the action, I was sitting in the office working. And then I asked myself, the Ghana, is it for me? Right? Then you hire a lawyer, because although I was a lawyer, I wasn't allowed to do it myself. And so you'd hire a lawyer, you pay legal fees. Then you have to agree on what they call a memorandum of issues with your opponent. If you don't agree, then you file separate ones and you go to the court for the court to set down the issues before the court takes its time to write the judgment. I believe we filed those proceedings in 2014. We didn't get judgment until 2017. So 2.5 to 3 years. When Parliament itself can simply sit down and in 21 days revoke it with a 2/3 majority, which the current governing party has. So it is not as easy as that. I'll give you another example. Ghana is very interesting. The Constitution says that everybody appointed to some public offices must declare their assets, 1, before assuming office, 2, every 4 years, and 3, upon leaving the service. The word before actually means before. Prior to. When we all hadn't read the Constitution well enough, these two parties went and sat in Parliament and passed a law that says that the before can mean 3 months after. Or actually 6 months. Can you believe that? And that has been our law to date. And so what happens is that the appointees will wait and get into office and see what is possibly coming. And then they declare what we call presumptive assets. Yes, presumptive. It's not there, but you say it's there, in the hope that in 4 years' time, it will be there. Then it will look like something you had before you came to office. We have written letters. In fact, we wrote to Attorney General Gloria Kufu. She agreed with us and said they need to remove that offensive extension. Right? As my Ghana friends will say, "Kabashing mene." Nothing has happened. They told us that they will pass the Conduct of Public Officers Bill. We fought with the last government for years to pass the bill, at least to remove that. They never did. Now we hear it has reached Parliament. So we are hoping that that will happen. So going to court is not that simple. And also waiting for the politicians to do that is not that simple. Like I said, the politicians only act if they think the thing will let them lose power. If they think it will let them lose power, they will act. So you and I have work to do. Can you sense my frustration? Yeah, when you do these things, and nobody's paying you for these things, and your neck is on the line, and you're being insulted, and me and this man, insulted every day. But when we started the fight against GALAMSEY, I used to get death threats on my phone. He will tell you. I used to get death threats. Ghanaians were following us. We used to declare Red Fridays against GALAMSEY. Me and this man, we wear red across Accra. The minute there was a change in government, all the people who were following us stopped. Because now their government was in power. And we were opponents. Then the heat started before that government left power. And the heat has gone down again. But it takes a call of people if we are really prepared to do it. And I agree with you. That is where the academy can take a stand. Because as for the academy, when they speak, people listen. But the academy has actually done what you said. They have written to they've done all the letters. They've received it. But this is the reality. As I read to you, have you heard that Ghana is doing very well in gold right now? And gold is touted as supporting the city in doing the great things that the city is doing. Right? And then we are told that we can't tell the source of our gold till September or 3 to 5 years. I mean, you don't need magic to let you know what is going on. That as compared to getting a strong currency backed by the gold and some pollution of water.
Thank you.
It's a very difficult thing. But let's all keep on with the fight. And I believe that the academy has spoken. I don't know if the academy is ever prepared to go to court on an issue like this. But the issue of he said, we don't have the money, right? And so, yeah, I think I'm done. Prof, I'm done. Thanks.
Okay. I have received a request from one of the students, and I think the reasons why they are here is because we want to give them the opportunity to understand the kind of things that we have presented. So I want to give the floor to a student from Achimota School. And where is the microphone? Please, yes. Just mention your name, and then ask your question or make a comment.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joel Latejabano, a student of Achimota School. I have 2 questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity as well. The first is, I'd like to ask for an explanation on the appointment of the Attorney General or Auditor General to prosecute the president. Is it just on GALAMSEY or anything? And the second one is, how can we make our citizens patriotic? I don't think if we love their country, they would engage in acts of GALAMSEY. The amount of awareness spread about GALAMSEY in this country, anyone pleading ignorance is, excuse my language, living under a rock. I want to ask what we can do as a country to make our citizens more patriotic.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Thanks for the question. It is not particularly targeted at everyone. As I was using this one stone to kill 2 birds. That we need that independent office of the Attorney General. Then the Attorney General will not obey any instructions by the President or by the executive or even by the legislature. An independent Attorney General is likely to act better in prosecuting a crime that is feeding the Republic. Right now, GALAMSEY, whether we admit it or not, is producing gold that is quote and unquote feeding the Republic. Right? If I serve as his Attorney General and I decide to prosecute a prominent galamseyer who is contributing to national coffers, the president can instruct me as Attorney General to stop the prosecution. The Attorney General who stopped prosecuting the famous Chinese lady miner didn't get up and do it herself. Time is fast spent, but I'll tell you what happened. Originally, when the lady was arrested, she was charged with some administrative offenses, which would have led to some little fines. So one day I got to my office, and this is what I sometimes go through. Somebody had left an envelope for me, and in it was the charge sheet. And the person who left it for me knew what I was going to do. So when I saw the shocking charges, immigration, this whatever, we wrote a petition to the Attorney General. That, what do you mean? This person is engaged in illegal mining. This is what the law says. Instead of charging her with the offense, they're charging her with some small immigration infractions. The Attorney General then changed the charges to the substantive charges, and we wrote to say this was good. Then one day, the same Attorney General files a noli prosequi, and before we know what is happening, the lady has left. And tellingly, it's good that the young man asked the question, tellingly, the then senior minister told us that what would we have benefited if we had jailed the lady? I mean, we are benefiting more from her country than anything else. And Ghanaians were just quiet. It was later that the president came and confessed, check the stories, that they made a mistake in letting her go. But the mistake had already happened, and she had left. But God being so good, she came back, and we got her. So that is why if we have an independent Attorney General, the Attorney General is not bound to obey the direction or control of the president. The Attorney General will say, I will prosecute this person. And the president can scream and shout, but the Attorney General will go ahead to prosecute. That is why I'm saying that in the main, we need an independent, and I don't even want to use the term Attorney General, we need an independent National Prosecutions Authority that is prosecuting all crime in the country. It might just whip us into line, and hopefully it will whip Galamsey into line. Because when you hear a minister say, when we arrest them, what are we jailing them for? We will send them back to their country. It's because they can instruct the Attorney General not to prosecute. But if you have a rebel Attorney General, if you make this, my friend, Attorney General, you look them in the eye and tell them, go to hell, I'm going to prosecute. And if he's protected by the Constitution, he will prosecute them. And if they know that the law will come after them, they'll stop. And so I think that we should seriously advocate that we need both the Independent National Resource Commission and we need an independent National Prosecutions Authority that is not taking any instructions from any politician. Then maybe we can take a few steps forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think those of us who have been here from Monday to now, you will realize that we had attempted to understand this idea of Galamsey. And the sum total that we have come to is this, that having known the extent to which the Galamsey has affected the Ghanaian economy, has affected the Ghanaian environment, and so on, which is looking at all aspects of the state of the nation as far as Galamsey is concerned. We also went through the process of attempting to identify if today we were bold enough to say that we want to correct all the mistakes that the Galamseyers have put on our country. Today was purposely to prefer solutions. So you see, it's a continuous process which we are trying to go through to assist ourselves in overcoming this wicked problem. I'm repeating wicked problem because the definition that I read earlier is like a cancer. A cancer is wicked. Cancer is wicked. Galamsey is wicked. Now, the point that is being established here is this, that you will find that there are so much around that we do not do as a country. And now we have heard some legal opinions which is actually taking us to a revision of our Constitution, because there are so many ambiguities in the Constitution, as far as I can see. There are so many inconsistencies in the Constitution as far as issues of the governance of our natural resources. And believe you me, we exist because there is an ecological system that is providing us with life. But we are destroying that ecological system. I think that is the main issue that we are referring to. So when I talked about ecocide, which my sister Mamaa had earlier indicated, we have now moved beyond ecocide. And we are now getting into the situation where eventually we will get to genocide, where you are actually killing people. I don't think we need to get to that extent. We need to stop this as far as it is possible. But one thing that we also want to take note of, you see, there are two parallel activities. One which is looking at non-renewable resource, which is gold, and the other which takes advantage of renewability of a renewable natural resource, which is probably cocoa. So if we were to look at Ghana and focus on the economy of Ghana, you will say that the two fat cows, which are providing Ghana with whatever it is to augment our economic standing, is gold and cocoa. Cocoa is a renewable resource. Gold is a non-renewable resource. So if your shift is towards gold, and you go on at the expense or at the expense of the environment, the way it is going, you will find that the gold will get finished. The other day I was told that there is a lot of deposit of gold in the country. But that one, we need to be very careful. So the advice that is also going to go out to the cocoa board and also the gold board is this, that you are two complementary, well, complementary in the sense that you are providing funds for this country. Work together and make sure that our environment is safe for human life. I would like to thank all of you for your attention. And this business of Galamsey being a serious problem, it's not one man's problem. It's a whole country's problem, especially the young ones. When you talk of sustainable development, we are actually looking into the future, a future which we don't see, but we can feel. Right now, we are feeling that the future of undergoing through this sustainable development, making sure that we are able to mark all the 17 goals. Can we really say, if you were to look at the dashboard, whether we have done good? I think the answer is that we have done bad. And this is the kind of thing we should always create an opportunity for us to see how best we can remove this burden on the Ghanaian. So, on your behalf, let me thank three panelists. They have done a tremendous job, and the usual way of thanking them is through an applause. And to thank you for your cooperation. We have spent close to about 3 hours here, but you have not complained. Thank you.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, all too soon, we've come to the end of 3-day program. Time is far spent. All has been said. So I wouldn't say anything much more than to announce one or two things that we will need to take attention, we need to pay attention to. It's always good to say that our chair has summarized a long lecture very succinctly. So let's give him a round of applause. And thank you. We remember that we acknowledge the sponsors who have made this 3-day event, contributed to the event: Bank of Ghana, Access Bank Ghana. Repeating our acknowledgement to our young next generation, Achimota School, Presec, and the schools who have attended the day 1, day 2. Madam President, our marching orders are evident. So from tomorrow, are we writing to the powers that be? I think that is a good take-home message from here. Announcement. There is going to be an inaugural lecture on the 12th of June here in this auditorium, titled Fixes That Fail, a Systems Dynamic Archetype for Unpacking Illegal, Artisanal, and Small-Scale Gold Mining in Ghana. And you have such an enduring issue, I believe you can't stop talking about it until some solutions are found. So Professor Frederick Atu-Ama, FGA, Professor of Environmental and Sustainability Science, will be speaking on this topic on the 12th of June. We cordially invite all of us to be present and listen as you have done. Just also to announce that for our colleagues, refreshment will be provided as packed so that you can get back to your campuses. And for invited guests, all of us in the foyer, and for fellows in the fellows lounge will be refreshment available. On this note, I would like to say thank you very much, and also kindly ask us to be upstanding as the distinguished speakers leave the program. Thank you.
Yeah.